For the past few weeks, my mother has been under a serious, life-threatening illness. It ended up expected at first that she would actually die before this morning. The doctors found out that she was going to live through the night, but unfortunately, things are still uncertain with the illness. Even if she would live through the misfortune, you can tell that one thing is going on. I've had enough. Enough of problems that have been going on for too long. For those who listened to my rant about shallowness being rewarded, you might remember an annoying issue I was alluding to. The general illness that had stricken my mother was that annoying issue. Where I really got irked was how long it took me to notice it all when she mentioned about getting hit with a stroke. 2 hours! It's a big deal because the stroke left her unable to unlock the door to her house to let the paramedics in and escort her out, so I had to make my way there to begin with. I did, of course, but it doesn't change that this was a needless delay for a 911 emergency. How did this happen? Well, I'll tell you what happened. At 2 p.m., my mother sent the email about the stroke. However, she sent it to an email box I provide for real-life people. An email box I don't check often because, unfortunately, I had to learn the hard way about a decade ago that counting on the Milholland relationship moment trope is a god-awful farce. You've seen my complaints about the spaz client problem. Issues like that prove I can't reliably turn to somebody in real life for something I can really confide in. All the same, I get the email at 2 p.m. and it eventually takes until she calls me directly at 4 p.m. to find out about the stroke. It was a freaking break that I didn't have my phone uncharged or set to vibrate, either of which would have guaranteed even worse complications. That's another issue. I also had my phone on vibrate yesterday when streaming Mania for my birthday stream. I finished streaming and forgot to set the phone back from vibrate, leaving me lucky that I noticed a phone call from a second-hand source to tell me that a family member was trying to call me about my mother's condition and getting as drastic as I had mentioned. This even happened when my phone was in the red. Granted, I had thought her condition was stabilizing, but no, now our old friend the Grim Reaper wants to be a threat when he's least expected to be. Suffice it to say, I'm just bothered by all this. I'm not going to say my mother's the best person ever. She has her problems, but she has been a decent person at actually caring. Unfortunately, hit by enough unfair nonsense. Besides, not listening to my side of the story is already a common problem from practically everybody anyway. Of course, it's dumb that happens. What, does anybody have to be an idiot to be friends with me? Apparently so. It's a line of logic that becomes a farce that will be disproven by actual communication with me. But God forbid I could, for example, prefer females older than me as early as the age of 14 for a reason. Unfortunately, claims about nonsense like me sucking at games like Smash Brothers, despite many contradictions to that, just for getting sucked by a projectile at 66% and complaining that it killed me, no it's guarding or anything, are a farce too. And yet the world wants to believe that. That's the thing. I just want people to try to understand where I'm coming from. It doesn't mean I want them throwing about needless hostility at the other side. And people have already seen fit to do that brand of garbage, so there's no reasonably trusting them to do anything welcome. I get to complain when I had been tired of this general fighting even before this. Heck, I have long taken issue with the infighting of the advanced force communities too, which by the way makes it even more asinine that the subreddit would see fit to slander and vilify me, a guy who doesn't even want the fighting to happen and simply vents about the shallowness plaguing the communities, while they give a free pass to somebody who gladly does things like mock Matthew Pike in the midst of blaming him for his being murdered instead of caring anything about the actions of the culprit, a guy who traveled abroad to commit lust-induced homicide. Matthew Pike's own girlfriend before he became deceased is far from a saint herself, but if you think I care about those details while making those complaints, then guess what? You might not have noticed, but if I cared too much about these sort of details, I wouldn't be making this video! That idiocy with the Advanced Wars subreddit brings me to my favorite part. When I was recently talking with Mario Mastar about these sorts of issues, he brought up a very good point about how savages like Gyppars, with what they already do toward Matthew Pike, unrepentantly at that, will gladly laugh at any pain they can. That sort of thing is what I wouldn't want, why I wouldn't want to make this video, because those same savages are all over the place, and people like the Wargroup developers are going to be shouting at the claim I'm the toxic one for daring to call out actual toxicity. So of course I'd be expecting people to try to flood the comment section with hot garbage. Not like I can't set comments to approval like I do on only every other video I make. Or, you know, show this to friends immediately to have them respond. When I'm already so fed up with this as of last night. My point is, this sort of fighting is just awful, yet it just happens. And as I recognized from the start, it doesn't allow anything that would make anybody genuinely happy.